Welcome to Coruzant Technologies, home of the Digital Executive Podcast.
Welcome to the Digital Executive. Today's guest is Jackson Fitzgerald. Jackson Fitzgerald was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where he is the youngest of 8 children with 6 older sisters. He attended Penn State, studied statistics and economics, and upon graduating in 2019, he put law school on hold to co-found Hedge with a few other Penn State graduates. He and his co-founders are on a mission to bring financial technology into the fantasy sports and sports gaming space. They felt Hedge only enhances the financial well-being and customer experience of the 50 million Americans who partake in the blossoming fantasy sports and sports gaming industry.
Well, good afternoon, Jackson. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Brian. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, you bet, man. This is really, really cool. You know, what's really inspiring, and I tell my guests all the time, is I've interviewed people from all over the world, from Taiwan to Argentina to the Netherlands, all across Canada, the US. And, typically the guests range from, physicians to physicists to CEOs, and a lot of them are well into their careers. What's really cool is you came right out of college and hit the ground running as an entrepreneurship. So this is really exciting for me, and we're going to jump right into these questions. So Jackson, you've got quite the career for such a short span, as I had mentioned, from leadership, law, and now you're the co-founder of Hedge. Could you share with our audience the secret to your career growth thus far, and what inspires you?
Yeah. And like I said, thanks again for having me. Sure. I mean, what inspires me, to answer the latter part of your question first, I would say just trying to put in and get meaningful work out of whatever I do. I'm naturally pretty curious in a lot of different fields, sectors, and topics. And this was something that at the time coming out of school was a major curiosity of mine, figuring out different problems in the industry, in the fantasy sports technology sector. It made a lot of sense for me to go into something that like I said, was curious about, that felt meaningful for me to work on. So that sort of inspires me to get up every day and work on these hard problems, because they're definitely not easy. Being curious and being passionate about them does require the curiosity. And I would say maybe the secret, I don't know if there's necessarily a secret. If there is, look for a book in a few years. But I do think just finding something that makes sense for you, something you're interested in, because there are going to be highs and lows, even in the short time, like you said, my short career coming out of school, the highs and lows really do go pretty high. What I lack in length in my career, the highs and lows have made up for in depth. So definitely having something that being around great people, working on hard problems that are meaningful, are sort of the secret behind what drives me, I guess, every day and into each week, month, and year at this point.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Jackson. I appreciate that. And, you are sharing some great nuggets just in, like I said, your short career out of college. So I appreciate that. And so, Jackson, as you know, everybody globally has had to make major shifts to adapt to the new normal. And could you share maybe what you're doing to help your organization stay relevant in this economy?
Yeah, it's an interesting economy, and especially one that revolves around sports, relies on sports. As you might remember, back in, I think it was March and April, the collegiate sports, professional sports shut down. So that was something that really staying relevant there was sort of one of the hardest things to do. We say we went into cockroach mode and really focused internally on things that were going to make us great for when the sports reemerged. We would then reemerge with it. One thing to stay relevant, I think that we always harp on, is different innovation, both in terms of our technology and user offering, as well as the way we innovate internally. So whether it's different ways to set up Zoom meetings, different technology to communicate. We have a new internal project management software, something to stay relevant for everybody in the individual, in the organization, to keep the overall organization relevant. I always thought was really important. Another thing to stay relevant is to have everybody on the team continue to learn both skills that have, if you want to say, previously existed, whether it's learning a new software language that you didn't know very well, or a different database schema that people didn't really understand, that are really important for us, something that we need to use. So being flexible about what we can learn, I think, is a great way. And then the last one is really innovating, looking to outside industries that have been very successful and incorporating them for us. A lot of times people have figured out the quote unquote formula of success for different companies and in different industries. The one we always use is the fintech, quote unquote fintech industry, which, as I'm sure you heard over the past few days, hasn't been doing too well, with one of the poster children, Robinhood, really taking it in the teeth. But what companies like them, and like Acorn, Stash, Stripe, all these companies, they really continue to innovate for the user, even if a lot of them are B2B companies. You can look to a couple articles that came out a few months ago where there was a spare change shortage, which really just showed the fact that a lot of, especially in the pandemic, it might have accelerated it, but it's a trend to stay, where Americans, all consumers around the globe really, are switching to digital payments and online payments. The articles sound great, but it really means something more, that people are moving online, and innovating around those trends for people is something that we like to do to stay relevant.
That's awesome. I appreciate your insights on especially the fintech space, which is really a hot topic off and on here on our podcast as well. So thanks for sharing that. And Jackson, obviously, you're currently leveraging some new or emerging technology in your tech stack, but is there anything that's not proprietary or confidential you care to share with our audience?
Sure. Yeah. And again, the stuff that I'm going to share, people can almost use right away and look on our website and see what we're building. Greatest thing, I think, the most notable thing that we're building, I would say, is this spare change connection for users to essentially use them in a gaming mode. So you look at other companies that are great with connecting what your digital spare change would be to either an investment platform or a savings account. Awesome functionality, and really has its own niche in creating a need for users and consumers that need to start saving more or what have you. The one thing that we noticed is a lot of people, especially younger adults, people within my and our team's demographic, are really interested in these fantasy gaming offerings, but sometimes don't budget very well. So in going after the social responsibility side of the quote unquote gaming industry, we think connecting an individual's digital spare change to our own native fantasy gaming platform as a budgeting tool or a gaming method, which they really act hand in hand, is something that's going to be really great. It isn't necessarily new technology. It's a new application of the technology. And really it required a tipping point or a critical mass of individuals connecting their online banking almost onto their smartphones, where you could send payments simply by almost using a login SDK to your either PNC, Citibank, whatever bank that you're connected to. It would require enough people that have this technology on their phone to then use this technology on a consumer-facing application like Hedge. So we're really just tapping into the overall trend of what users are doing, combining with what users would want, and in a way to allow them to budget for something that they do want without going over their skis, as we like to say. So
Sure. No, that's awesome. I appreciate that. And we're going to definitely be following your platform and watching your success. So thank you. And Jackson, last question. Our audience would like to know a little bit more about Jackson Fitzgerald. Can you share something from your career experience that might be helpful for those looking to grow their career in technology or entrepreneurship?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always like to say I'm a product of my environment. So I think the best thing that I did for myself was to be very observational in people that are successful, people that are older, but not limiting it to that. There's sometimes people that you wouldn't expect have a little formula of success that if you didn't look around and see what they were doing, you'd miss it. So always being humble enough to say that somebody has an answer, a better answer than you do, so that you can improve your answers down the road. And what that really goes into is two things. I always said, be nice and be kind to people, because people are very willing to help and share those answers. Like I said, if you're kind and nice and offer not even to do favors in a strategic way, but just take a little bit of your time and help them out if you can, because you'd be surprised how reciprocal those relationships can be. And then the last one almost ties into the same exact theme, which is to ask questions. Never be afraid to ask a dumb question. There really are no dumb questions. There are sometimes dumb questions, but very rarely are there true questions that are a waste of people's time. So continue to ask, be curious, be kind, and eventually the relationships and favors and relationships that you have will pay dividends. And you'd be surprised, like I said, how far that'll get you, and how far people are willing to help you if you reach out for some help.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. And I am just so inspired by someone as yourself, new entrepreneur coming out of college and really just taking off with this. So like I said, we're going to be watching your career very closely. And Jackson, it was a pleasure having you on today. I look forward to speaking with you real soon.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. Yeah, looking forward to talking to you too.
Bye for now.